Welcome back to our channel. Thank you for joining us today, the Victim to Victor podcast. I am your host, Sherie Davis.
And I am your co-host, Arianna A. Hullum.
And today we have a special episode today.
A very special episode. We are here to talk about the fear of speaking up. How to come forward and speak up, how to overcome the fear of speaking up with sexual abuse, because it's not easy. It's a sensitive topic, like we said before. It's very sensitive to discuss, but our goal for this channel is to overcome that fear and to be able to conquer our fears. We are going to overcome our fears.
Yeah, fear is a big thing to conquer. But before we go any further, y'all, don't forget, please subscribe,
like,
share,
and hit the notification button so you can be updated on any further updates, because we're not going nowhere.
We're not, because we have the audacity, literally the audacity to come back and have such a hard conversation. We understand by experience, indirect experience, that talking about sexual abuse is hard. It's not an easy conversation to have. And we just hope through this podcast and through our conversation that we will open the terrain where, anybody, whoever, will be more comfortable. And as y'all can hear, I don't know if y'all saw the first episode. If you didn't, go check it out. And we kicked off this podcast with talking about how can you overcome sexual abuse, because y'all looking at an overcomer. All right, stand up and give them a little something on the back. Show them a little something for me. Right?
My hair.
That's it.
Because the overcoming is overcoming.
She has overcame, honey. Yeah, you said overcomer is overcoming.
Yes.
I like that. I love it. So we want to promote that. We want people to be able to share their story or be comfortable, whether if it's on our platform or in your own private space in your home. It is important to have those conversations with yourself or a safe person, and we want to be that safe space or safe haven if one would like to come on our show. And so we'll talk about that. We'll get into that a little further later. But we thank you again for joining us. Again, if you have not watched the first episode, go back, check it out, listen to this powerhouse. That's what I call her, y'all. That's what I call her. Listen to this powerhouse story and what happened to her, where she's at now in life. I mean, it's just overall encouraging. She encouraged me. Her life encourages me. And I know we had I think you wanted to mention that previous episode, the one that we had to kind of remove. Why don't you go ahead and...
Yeah, so we do want to give an apology for anyone that was waiting to watch our second episode. But
I think it was the June 1st episode.
Yeah, this was the June 1st episode was meant to be our second episode, but due to difficulties, we had to cut that, and now this will be our second episode.
Welcome to episode 2, y'all. We made it. And as you can see, it's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah,
right?
It's very hard and sensitive, and it's just you don't know what to say sometimes. You don't know how to feel. You don't know if you're feeling the right thing. It's a really hard topic. And
it is.
Yeah.
I feel like too, to have the conversation. Can you imagine? And I don't know, you tell me this. Tell me if you've had this experience as you begin to share your story. I know in episode 1 you talked about when you started being free to talk about your story.
Yeah.
Did you ever at one point regret sharing it? Like, did you have like doubts, like, oh, I said too much, I should have said that, I wish I had not, right?
Yeah. So when I was coming out to tell my story, everybody got the fear of you're lying. Everybody got the fear of being told that you're lying or it's not true. Where's the proof? They don't just take your word for it. They need some type of proof, or they need some type of proof. So when I did start to get my backlash per se of the, you lying or why you didn't speak on it 8 years ago. And, that was my reason for this. Why I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, that's where the doubt came from.
Y'all saying exactly what I was scared for.
Okay, got you. So your fear was more so of the response. You feared the response of people around you.
Yeah.
Man, and that's why we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about that fear of speaking up. Like, one could even put it out there and then have the regret, and they regret that they didn't. And so, and that's normal. It's I get
normal,
it.
But let's not mention that it's also the right thing to do. no matter how fearful you are, no matter how fearful you are in that type of situation, it's all about you.
Right.
It's all about you. So no matter how fearful you might feel of coming out, at the end of the day, that's a big relief off your shoulders. It's definitely going to, you're going to look back at that 5-10 years from now and be amazed and relieved that you was able to finally tell your story and to be able to say, I did that.
Can you imagine where you're gonna be 5 years from now?
I can't wait to see.
Wait, it's like
I can't wait to see. I don't know.
Some of the people that we've come into contact with, and we share what our podcast is about, and they hear your story. You always get, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah,
like, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Not only that, we've heard, she's been constantly praised, and even admired on a level that some older women wish that they had spoken up as early as she did. So, I think it's just a good, I don't know. It's just, like I said, I think we mentioned this in the beginning, the first episode. Speak up, or I may have posted on Instagram. Speak up to help yourself first. And while you're helping yourself, you'll be helping others.
Yeah, because definitely.
I'm sure you're getting a tremendous amount of help.
Definitely.
With even being an advocate now for sexual abuse. You're still getting that internal help.
Yeah, it's definitely helping me myself. I can say, like, a lot of the articles and stuff I read, they disturb me now.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say it wasn't disturbing before, but back then it was like, oh, I was in the closet pretty much reading these articles or hearing stuff about it. And I'm like, dang, we're going through the same thing.
Wow.
Like, we're going through the same thing right now. So now that I read articles and I hear stories, I just be like, I be disgusted, turned off from it. I just be like, I don't like this. Like, it leaves a bad feeling inside of me that I just don't know. If I had the power to snap my fingers and end all of it, trust me, I'd be snapping away.
I'll be snapping for you.
I'd be snapping away.
And so that's why I think, that speaking up is so important. It's important because this is what we have to remember. And this is a statistic. We chose to connect, and we're working on connecting with the organization called RAIN, and RAIN stands for Rape. What is it? Rape, Assault, Incest National Network. And there's a 1-800. It's a support hotline, and so we always encourage anyone. If you're anyone that may be experiencing sexual abuse, they have experienced or still is. We'll leave information in the end, and we'll talk about it in the end on where they could reach out for help and support. But one of the reasons why it's so important to speak up, because on the RAIN.org's website, they have a lot of statistics, but one of the statistics that stood out to me the most, it talks about the excessive, or how often someone is sexually abused. And basically every 68 seconds, someone is sexually abused, and every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. Like, that is enough for anybody to say, you know what, enough is enough. Whatever we need to do. And like, we're not saying that we're here and we are combating a very serious topic. We're combating a very serious act. That's a big deal, right? And so we're not saying through this podcast, like she said, if we're together right now, we could snap our fingers that it all stop and change that statistic, stop those numbers completely. We would love to do that. But we just hope that our podcast will slow those numbers down. The more we keep the conversation public, the more we keep the conversation going and not keep it so private, people will be more comfortable with speaking up and not just settling in it and allowing it to continue to happen, because of many reasons why people allow it to happen. Like you said, that fear, the lack of, am I going to have support? Am I going to be believed? Am I going to be taken serious? My advice to anyone, child, man, woman, like, keep telling until someone listens. Keep saying something until someone listens. If your parents won't listen, get a sibling. If the sibling won't listen, if you don't have siblings, find another family member. If they don't listen, tell another responsible adult. If they don't listen, either way, keep telling. And I want to give a little bit of history about our podcast and where it came about, how we kind of got started. And if you miss episode 1, we touched on it a little bit. I'm not going to go over full details like I did in the beginning, but I feel like I'm here because of her. Like, it's all her fault.
Yeah.
Because before her life, I mean, before I met her, which was in February, my life was fine. I was doing good, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I was everywhere.
You mentioned your prayer, what you had.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had a very big. The beginning of the year, I had a repetitive prayer, and I just kept mentioning in my prayer, like, God, give me a voice, give me put the speaker, give me the voice to be a speaker, put that cape on me. I want to be able to spread a word some way. Like, I just prayed that, and then I met Miss Sherie at her Habakkuk gathering, and which was a vision board meeting.
Yeah.
If you don't know, and I just kind of expressed. I had on my vision board, one half of my vision board, I expressed that I wanted to be able to speak, and
yeah.
I told my story a little bit there in front of people I didn't even know. Mind you, I didn't even know her that much, and I was compelled to tell my story.
She did.
So, yeah, I didn't know too much about what I wanted to. I just know I wanted to speak. So at the vision board meeting, I put on there, I want to speak about this. This is my goal. And yeah, and then she called me probably 2 weeks.
In March.
Yeah, like 2 weeks later, because it was late.
Was it 2 weeks later?
Yeah, it was late February that we did the meeting.
Yes.
So probably about 2 weeks later, she called me at like 8:30 in the morning, and was like, I was in the shower and I had this vision, and I was just talking to God, and He told me that start a conversation. Yeah. She was like, "You want to do it?" And I was like, "Yep."
I was right.
Yep. I want to start a conversation.
She didn't even think about it. She didn't even think about it. Like, okay, you want to go in your prayer closet? She's like, "Yes, I'm in. I'm in." I'm like, yeah, I was just amazed. So, I always say too, thank you. I really do thank you for, saying yes to this commitment, because it's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it's
hard.
Like I'm all in for it, but I see the discouragement and the difficulties. Yes, but like I said in that intro, we're not going nowhere.
We're not going anywhere. Yes, and I love that.
We here to stay, and we here for local, global, whoever. We here,
and we'll put that invite, and you guys can always go on the link. Check the link in the bio. You'll find our email address, and like I said, we'll touch on that a little bit later. But so yeah, we've been. I just feel like I've been burdened with this. But again, before I met her, I was fine. My life was I feel like it was going great. And then I met her, and I had this newfound burden. And we were in the lab. I think we jumped in the lab right away. I don't think we delayed.
Probably like a week later, we jumped in the lab.
We start building and having conversations, and
got our logo done. And we was in
let's get a look at these t-shirts, right?
Get into the t-shirts.
So I want y'all to support one of my mentees, Miss what is it?
Miss Star, and she has it's called
Cuban Customs. Cuban Customs. Yeah. We're gonna put the her @sign. Her will be listed on the bottom, but then you'll also find it in her link in the link in the bio, however you say it. Yeah. But yes, she hooked us up. She got our logo on our shirt. We got some other shirts that's coming that we'll be rocking.
Yeah.
And we'll be selling merchandise at some point. But for right now, we just kind of want to do a little twinning for today. A little twinning. It's okay to be a twin.
Victim to victor.
Yes. So either way, this is a hard assignment, but I'm up for it, because like she said, I was burdened with this at some point in March, and I feel like God came in on one of my most private moments in the shower, because that's what God does. And I felt compelled to start the conversation. I don't even think I had you on my mind. I did not have having a conversation about sexual abuse on my mind. None of that. It just, all of it hit me in that moment. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And just a little bit of background again on myself and Ari. I have never been sexually abused, but I am surrounded by a lot of sexual abuse victims, from my mom to my daughters. And so it's personal, but it's a different form and a different level of personal for me. It's more indirect. And one of the things I have noticed, and I know I said this to you umpteen times, I just noticed how every body responds to
Different.
being sexually abused?
Yeah.
No, the same.
Oh.
My
Yeah,
surrounding.
oh yeah.
And that response that I see is that they choose to suffer in silence. And I remember I said this years ago, that term "suffering in silence." I just was sitting off by myself, and I just observed my surrounding, and I'm like, when I learned certain things happened to someone, and I'm like, why did they just hold on? Why didn't they say anything? They just suffered in their silence. And I'm not one to suffer in my silence. I am not. If you know me, for those that know me, I do not keep quiet if something is bothering me, or if you do something that I do not like, I'm gonna tell you in that moment. In case in point, I'm gonna get a little further off topic. And this happened twice in church. There were two men. It was two men in church. One was an older guy who I looked at as a dad. I actually called him dad. And he did something appropriate. He kissed me on my neck. In that moment, you think I waited, or I'm gonna tell you that too, that blame too, like, because I really thought about that after the fact, like, oh, I probably shouldn't have hugged him, because I always give a little Christian side hug. Well, he saw an advantage, and he took my arm and pulled me closer, and he kissed me on my neck. Let me tell you, I didn't wait. Well, I pulled back and said I didn't like that. I let it be known at that moment. I didn't like it. I didn't like that, and that sent the message that you shouldn't have done that. Right away, he was very apologetic. And for me, after that point, I stopped calling him dad, and I distanced myself. Like, I didn't trust him anymore. It's like when I saw him again, I forgave him. Because I was gonna go to the leaders and tell them, like, you better get your fathers, your elders in this church. But I feel like it happened 3 times in my life. Now that I think about it, it happened 3 times, because it was that guy, and then it was another guy. He was another older guy, but he wasn't an elderly. He had a thing for me or whatever, and I was walking around past. I had to walk by past him to get to the other side of the church, and he said, "Sherie, come here." And I was like, "Oh, okay, let me see what he wants." And I walked over by him, and he said something, and I was like, "Yeah, okay." And I attempted to walk away. He took my urn and grabbed me. Man, I jerked so fast, like, don't do that. Like, don't grab me like that. And so I don't think he wasn't as apologetic. I went to the leaders on him, and I was like, "You need to get your dinking," because he was just a little too aggressive. He forcefully grabbed my arm, and it felt semi-abusive. Just you got, if I don't want to be in your presence, you got to respect that. And the third time, believe it or not, there was a third time, right? In 2010, I did a fundraiser. I was in a pageant for the Church of God in Christ called the Woman of Distinction. Well, I walked away with the crown. Okay, I was on the front of the courier. I got my honey. I was cute, right? Had my crown on, hair done, makeup done. It was a perfect moment for me. And the guy who wrote in the courier, he was a journalist, short guy too. He wanted to interview. No. He wasn't the courier. He was a journalist for a magazine. I can't remember. I feel like he was a journalist for the courier. Because he was the one that posted my story in the courier. And I was on the front page, honey. I was like, oh, I still got my article too. I was like, oh, she made it. But so he called me and said he wanted to do a story on me. So he didn't. He was in another newspaper. The Courier was a separate. So no discredit to the Courier. The Courier was an amazing platform. But no, he did not work for the Courier. He was a different journalist. He worked for a different magazine. And he invited me out to dinner because he wanted to do a story on me, because I was working with teens in the community. I was going to detention centers, being a mentor, and then serving in the church. And then I had just won the Woman of Distinction and Miss Congeniality. I took both awards. And he was like, "Where do you want to go?" And I was like, "Well, I love P.F. Chang. P.F. Chang is one of my favorite restaurants. It has an upscale vibe. I ain't gonna say it's upscale, but it has an upscale vibe." And so we ate. He ordered, of course, he paid for all the food, and he let me take all the leftovers home. So I was like, "Okay, thanks." I'm walking to the car, and he walks into my car, and I was like, again, me giving that Christian hug, and yet again, he grabs me and kisses me on my neck, and again, I'm like, "No, I didn't tell you to do that. Don't do that." He was apologetic. He was like, "I'm sorry." And he tried to call me later. I blocked him at that point because my block game is strong and my block list is long, right? That's what I do. And so I blocked him, and then I saw him at the following Woman of Distinction, because when you were crowned Woman of Distinction, you have to do the crowning at the next one. So I had to go back the following year, which is in 2011, to do the crowning. I had to pass my crown to the next winner. He was there, and I was in the servant position. I was serving tables and things of that nature, and he called my name out. Man, block list is strong. Okay, my block game is strong. He called my name, and he's at a table full of his constituents and friends. He said, Sherie. I kept walking like he didn't say nothing to me, and they all knew who I was because I was the previous winner.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I let it be known. That's a problem, bro, and you can't come back that easy. And first of all, I don't even know you like that.
Exactly.
So I don't owe you my energy or my time. Yeah, I don't owe you. So it's so easy to blame yourself and to think that you've done something wrong in those situations. And then that's when that fear settles in. If you stay in that place of blaming yourself, then it's just like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to keep it to myself. So I've watched so many of my family members and other people that I know suffer in silence, and I'm kind of tired of it. And I feel like that's why I took the burden on so easily, is because if there's something that, not myself, but maybe there's something that Ari can say, maybe there's something that another guest on our show, on our podcast, could say that could help somebody else who's watching, who may be struggling in their silence. Maybe something that can be said to get you out of your silence. But our podcast is, the energy and the aura that we're going to always have is speak up to help yourself first. And while you're helping yourself, you can help somebody else through your story. Because we've already gotten testimonies of how her story and just our conversation has really helped some other people. So we want to prevent these numbers. We want to slow down these numbers. Again, we're not super women, like we're not superhuman. But if our conversation can slow this statistic down, every 68 seconds, someone gets sexually abused, and every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. That hurts.
Yeah.
That's a very scary statistic.
Yeah, especially because most victims start off as children.
Yeah.
It's very scary because it's scary. You're taking the innocence away from a child.
Pretty much.
Anybody's innocence could get taken at any age, any moment, but it's very scary and disturbing when it's a child, someone that you're supposed to protect.
Yep.
As a parent, as a big sister, a big brother, you are to protect them. So it's very disturbing and scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you think about when you said that a child who you're supposed to protect? Can you imagine the trust, first of all, the trust that's naturally built between a child and a parent, or a child and a responsible adult, how that trust is built, how easily and over time it's built, but how it can be destroyed just as quick as it was built?
It can be.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah. They lose trust.
Very. That's kind of like with my situation. The person who I was abused by, I wouldn't say I had my full trust within him, but at one point, I didn't have my full trust within him, but there are certain situations, certain times, I trusted you. I trusted you to protect me.
Yeah.
Like I had said, I'm not sure if I said this in the previous episode, but I did say, if this was to happen to me from someone else, I am supposed to run to you. If I couldn't run to my dad, I couldn't run to, I should have my line of people that I can trust to come to for help.
Every child should.
Yeah.
Yep. Every child should. And think about, there are some people who choose not to say anything because they want to protect the bloodline, or they want to protect the reputation of that person. Could also be a form of self-protection. I don't want the drama. Is that something?
They don't want the drama that comes behind it. It does bring drama.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yes, it does.
I got my own drama with it.
Yeah.
Still to this day, still got my own drama.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's all about you. If you can't be selfish with anything, this is what you be selfish with. You be selfish with telling the facts, because nobody knows what happened but you and that person who's done it to you.
Yeah.
So this is your moment, your time to shine, as far as this is your time to tell your story and to get the truth out, because we already got the fear of we lying. So you got to make it about you and stand on what you say.
Yeah.
That if I can say anything, say that.
That's key. That's so key. It was something that you said that I kind of wanted to talk about later, but it'll probably come back up. But you got a couple. We got a couple cases that we wanted to kind of touch on. Which one? What do you have?
So I have a case which is very, very disturbing.
Yeah. So this case, I kind of know the person.
Yeah, it's
personally.
It's very disturbing.
It's disappointing. Very disappointing.
And it's disappointing. Like I said, we all have people that we run to for protection, and in this case, he was someone that you would run to for protection from any trauma. He was a trauma specialist. Let's just put that out there. He was a trauma specialist, and trauma specialist for kids, and he was supposed to be a form of protection, and he was supposed to be a confiding person for these kids, and he wasn't, because he made this article.
So what is what's the headline of it?
So the headline is a Milwaukee child advocate accused of sexually abusing children. I'm gonna say his name because
absolutely,
his
like
name is,
we're not protecting it.
Yeah,
here.
We're not protecting nobody.
So his name is Cornelius Smith, y'all. We just wanted to kind of expound on a couple cases that we came across that we remembered. And as a matter of fact, both of these cases we're gonna just kind of talk about a little bit. We're not gonna give it too much energy, but I know both of these gentlemen personally, and yeah, I was extremely disappointed. But yeah, Cornelius Smith. This one is an interesting one. Some of you probably already heard about this. I think his case opened up when I believe it was probably in the spring, where he was molesting the kids that he was caring for. Cornelius was a foster parent for Kids Matter, and it's just sad that for 10 years
he was sexual assault of his children. It's disturbing because his actions are similar to they're kind of similar to my case, but when you hear other people's stories, his actions are very similar. Even when you watch movies, like you watch Criminal Minds, SVU, his actions are similar. So he no, for real.
Right.
So yeah, he was investigated, and it was said that he used violence.
Yeah,
he used violence to get his kids to perform sexual acts. He used tricks. That's a familiar thing for me too, because a predator will trick you into doing certain things so they can make it more easy to attack.
Yeah.
He would threaten to hold possessions to force sex with them. So just imagine you being threatened to do something.
Yeah.
That's not my case, but that's another familiar thing as far as trying to get someone to do something against their will.
Right.
They will trick you and threaten you. And it left a bad feeling on these kids.
Lasting effects.
Bad lasting effects. A couple kids said they were suicidal. Another said that they were tired of being beaten, which is they were beaten against their will. So he was tired of being beaten, so he complied with sexual acts just to get it over with. That's the most common thing in this type of topic. We get tired of going through things, so we just comply and just let you do what you do and let you take over.
That fight or flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to mention he was a trauma specialist. These kids are already traumatized. They've been through enough trauma. They want to get past their traumas, and he's causing more trauma. So, yeah.
I mean, for me, it's like the kids have enough already. Like you're
Yeah.
taking in kids who obviously don't have the family support.
Mhm.
They like again, I think you mentioned this, but I think it also mentioned in the report. Um, they're already vulnerable.
Yeah,
Like
they're
you're
very
causing
vulnerable.
harm to children who are already vulnerable. First of all, I think kids, whether they're in the home or out of the home, are vulnerable.
Mhm.
I think a child is
A
vulnerable
child
to
is
every
vulnerable.
culture
Yeah, they're vulnerable
because
automatically.
anything could happen,
Mhm.
whether if it's inflicted by them or inflicted by someone around them, caught in a crossfire, direct target. They're just all around vulnerable, and so to me, it just saddens my heart that someone at his caliber, which that's very low, but
Yeah.
the fact that you took on such a job, and I believe this case is still open. I don't think that charges have actually been filed.
Mhm.
He hasn't been charged yet. I do believe it's still going through the court system. But of course, I know he's facing a lot of time, and but cases like this, we hate that it came to this. We hate that it happened, but I appreciate it coming to this point where number one, it has made the news. It has it's been exposed
Yeah.
and stopped. But one of the things for me, when I learned about it, I was disappointed. I don't watch the news, y'all. I read the news because the
Mhm.
news is just too much
It
for me.
is
As
a
an
lot.
intercessor, um,
It
I
be
sometimes can
everywhere.
carry things spiritually. I can easily feel burdened, and every burden is not my responsibility. So I'm careful with watching too much of the news. I used to watch it, and yes, I always felt burdened. And so I read the news, and so my daughter texted me the article, and I saw his picture, and I'm like, "What is this?" And I read it, and I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like, who
Who
knew?
knew?
But I'll tell you this: there were some people because we used to associate. We were associated in the same environment. Um, we went to church together. I'll just say that, and there was some speculations. Y'all know how church folks are. There were some speculations in the church
Yeah.
about his character. I for one, I knew that there were some other things about him. I never suspected him to go so far.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna be one of the ones that get on TV and say, "Oh, he was a good person," and I can't believe he
He
did
didn't
this.
deserve this. No.
All I say is
Them
I
kids
didn't
didn't
expect it.
deserve it.
The kids didn't deserve it. So and that was the thing. That's where I was going. Like when I read what happened and what he did, and I'm like, 10 years of lasting effects that he left on those
Yeah,
children.
definitely.
10 years. But then there's always that question: who did it to
Who
him?
did it? Yeah, that's
Right?
it's
It's a
always
ripple
that
effect.
the predator was the ones before the victim.
Yeah, always, always. The victim becomes the predator at some point
Yeah,
if they don't have the proper upbringing or guidance and having the right conversation.
right.
But
Emotional support.
yeah, so I said fight or flight, but there's a third one because I did see this in an article. When a kid's in that sense, it's either fight, flight, or pawn.
Mm,
And in this kid's case, he was a pawn,
yeah,
right? He couldn't fight, he couldn't run,
yeah.
so I
It's
might as well
in the
just
care.
be a
Yeah,
pawn for him. So yeah, devastating. And so I decided to bring up another case that I'm also familiar with, and this is someone else who I know personally, and I mean not in my direct circle, but I work in the same field. I used to work in the same field. He used to work in this field because he's currently serving time. He was given 18 years in prison. And this case is in regards to it's another sexual assault case, and his name is Jamario Danzler here in the Milwaukee area. If you're watching, I'm sure you heard about this case. This took place in 2016, but the actual assault took place in 2015. And so I don't know what fixes a person's mind to do something so
yeah.
cruel to a minor, to anybody really, but in these cases, minors. And so
Especially vulnerable ones.
yeah, they're all
They're all
vulnerable though.
vulnerable, but
Like
it's the ones where you can see the vulnerability. You
yeah,
can see that they're easy looking, or I'm gonna
yeah,
try, and then if you try and you succeed, or
yeah.
it's I feel all abusers, they just like when you were telling your story, they were trying you.
They tried
They
it.
were trying you, and they were you saying
Corrected
something
really
saved
quick.
you saying something saved you.
It did.
It saved you.
Yeah.
because had you not say anything,
They
the
would've
next
tried it
time you saw
again?
them, you would have got kissed on the neck again. You probably would have got kissed on the cheek this time. So you saved yourself. And a lot of us don't have that strength because we constantly, it's a process. Like, you just responded quickly.
Yeah.
But had that be me or someone else, me now, I would, what you doing?
Right. Period.
But me 3-4 years ago, right. I would have processed that in my car. Like, did he just kiss my neck? Like, did he just do that? And then when I saw him again, I probably could say something like, don't do that. You did that. I ain't like that. But I could also just kind of just shut myself down and just let him do what he do, because I could have said something the previous time, but I didn't. So now it's like an invitation. Yeah, it's a
that was a point of grooming.
Yeah, and I'm carrying this weight from the last time, and more weight is added because he did it this time too. So it's like it's a process, and I'm glad you did step up and no, don't do that. I don't like that, because you were definitely a target.
Dang, are you kidding me?
You were definitely a target.
Wow.
You were definitely someone.
I've never looked at it that way.
You were a test. I'm gonna see if I can get her.
Oh my goodness.
You were.
Are you kidding me?
You were a test.
Like, I was a target?
Yes.
Well, they didn't bullseye.
Next one. But yeah, you were definitely a target. You were
I never the way looked at that.
The way that they tried to get you is how they get others.
Wow. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Like, you saying a mouthful, and it's a lot. I can't really expound too much on it, but you're saying a mouthful right now. With one of the characters, you're saying a mouthful.
You were someone that you were a target, and they tried the same way that they tried you. They probably have other gestures depending on the person. Like I said, they see vulnerability in certain people. They see things in people that sometimes we don't see in ourselves.
Yeah.
So they saw I wouldn't say they saw anything in you, but they saw something that they might have thought that they can take from you.
They thought.
But it was definitely something that they thought they saw in you, and they were going to try to
prey on that. They thought. And then maybe it was the vulnerability of being a woman.
Yeah.
Not only a woman, but a single woman.
Yeah.
You thought.
Y'all were alone.
Yeah, yep, because we were. Yeah, you're right.
Y'all were alone.
All three scenarios. Yes, ma'am. You are absolutely right.
So yeah.
We were in the vestibule of the church, and there was, oh my goodness, girl, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
All these years?
Yes.
I never knew that I was targeted.
You aren't a product of sexual abuse, but you were once a target.
And what? Listen, this is the power of speaking up.
Yeah.
The power of speaking up.
And everybody has their timing for everything, but I was 8 years old. I knew but I didn't know. Don't touch me right there. But sometimes we do think and we wish that we could have just been that one person to say, don't touch me like that. But once again, it is a process. Like I said, I'd be sitting in my car like, did he just kiss me on my neck? And probably next time I saw him, he might have tried to do it again. Now I'm carrying two burdens with one stone.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, it's amazing for this podcast, like for our YouTube channel, we actually have it set up that it is child appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
We want children, because we know kids can have access to the internet. We would hope that our videos would stumble upon their feed and take some notes, because like you said, you were 8, you didn't have that power. You didn't have that power or the ability or the capacity to even speak up at that moment. Like, you're vulnerable. You're a little girl.
Was vulnerable. Very
so to pass that, to be able to pass that power, the ability, the power of speaking up, to be able to pass that on to another 8-year-old or 9-year-old or 5-year-old or however age, I mean, it would mean a lot. It would be so rewarding to get a child to speak up. And again, and I think I probably expounded on this a little bit in episode 1, but that's what my daughter didn't do. She didn't speak up, right? And believe it or not, both of them, neither one of them spoke up. But for what happened to them, they didn't come to me. They didn't allow me to protect them. And I feel like that's going to be another episode we're going to talk about with either a guest or without a guest. I want to talk about that blame,
Yeah.
how parents could blame themselves
Mhm.
because, yeah, for the longest I did. I blamed myself just because they didn't speak up and they didn't give me the opportunity to protect them.
Yeah.
It was hard. It
Mhm.
was it was truly truly hard. But either way, so yeah, we're gonna get more into speaking up and overcoming that fear of speaking up. And so just to kind of reconcile this case with Jamario Dantzler, like I said, he was sentenced to 18 years in prison, and then I believe 8 years of supervised visitation. So he'll find his freedom in his 60s.
Yeah.
And again, I know him personally, and he was very remorseful. I just hope and pray that while he's in, he's really being productive and proactive,
Mhm.
and really
Taking his accountability, if
taking it
anything. You
serious
can
and
admit that you did something, and you can admit to God and keep that with you
yeah.
and learn to better yourself from it. So if anything, he should be in there taking his accountability.
And I believe with that, with saying that, accountability is something that you have to literally take, even if it's the same thing, the same offense.
Mhm.
You have to literally take that accountability every single day,
Yeah, you have to be able
every
to.
day.
It's like you have to be able to admit, like,
Mm-hmm.
not just that one time. You have to be able to come to a realization with yourself with what you've done, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's this or anything. You have to
Right,
be able to come to
right,
a realization and be like, I did do this.
right,
You have to take that with you everywhere you
right,
go.
right, right. And just always remember, I did it, and
Yeah.
don't do it again.
Mhm.
Right? That's the purpose of accountability.
Yeah.
We make ourselves accountable for our wrong, and hope not to practice it over and over and
Mhm.
over again.
Yeah.
So we hope to do different. But yeah, these cases, we'll bring more cases to you each episode. And again, and these are old episodes. We don't have anything current. We didn't do too much digging, but we're gonna kind of bring more cases and evaluate and look at the outcome. And both of these cases, the good news is these kids got justice. That's
Yes.
the good news.
Amazing.
Yeah, just like Arianna here. Y'all go back and listen to episode 1. Arianna got her justice.
Mhm.
That's all around. At peace, like
Yeah.
peaceful. Like I was believed. Number one, I was heard.
Yeah.
I was believed. I
By
was taken
some.
serious,
Yeah.
and they did something about it. So it's like that closure. And I do
Yes,
believe you
it
talked
is.
about
It's a
closure.
closure, a big closure, and a relief off your shoulders.
Yeah.
You're carrying. I wouldn't say it has nothing to do with you. Didn't cause it. Let's say that for
Sure.
start. You're carrying weight that you didn't cause. This has nothing to do with you as far as you told him or her to come and touch. You didn't do that.
Right.
So that's the weight that we carry, and we have to come to a realization within ourselves that we didn't ask for this to happen.
Yeah.
So we can't carry their weight. They got to take that up with God and they jail time if they get it.
Yep.
So we can't save them from that jail time. We got to stop saving them from their jail time.
Mm-hmm.
The accountability on earth.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
You did this to me.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you to do this.
Right. So that's your fault.
Yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this predicament.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have to just come hold them with accountability, get that closure within ourselves. That's the most important thing, because it eats you alive. It doesn't make you who you are today. That's another thing too. What you go through doesn't make you who you are. It shapes you.
Mm-hmm.
So getting that closure and that relief, you will realize a lot about yourself.
That's good.
Bless you.
That's good. Thank you. That was a silence. But that's good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think that goes for any trauma.
Yeah, any trauma.
When you allow yourself to overcome the results of the trauma, or first of all the actual event, and then the results, you can then do some more soul searching, because the soul can become dark when someone is being hurt, afflicted in any form of fashion. Yeah, our souls can become a little dark, and if we're dark on the inside, that's going to reflect on our outside. So yeah, so we've been talking about speaking up. Like, if you put yourself, and this is probably I don't know how, if this is going to be hard. It might be hard, but think about that 8-year-old, your 8-year-old self, and what would you do different, understanding the power of speaking up.
The 8-year-old me, if I understood like the actual justice I could have got for speaking up, I probably would have told my dad.
You would have went to dad.
Yeah,
okay.
I would have told him. And like I would got older, and mind you, I carried that burden for at that moment. I carried that burden for probably about happened when I was 8, and I carried it for about 6 years at the time. So that's 6 years worth of damage that he's done to me. But not only has he done his damage to me, but I'm carrying his accountability also.
Yeah,
so I'm carrying his accountability. I feel like 8-year-old me would have been more believed than what I was waiting for. I was waiting for the proof. So 8-year-old me probably would have been believed 100%.
Okay.
But I'm still vulnerable. I'm still, learning. I didn't really get to talk. Like I said, I feel like a parent should make sure that their kid knows that nobody should touch you.
Exactly.
Nobody at all. I got to talk, but I didn't really get the seriousness of the talk. I just was always kind of told here and there, don't let nobody touch you. Don't let nobody do that. But it wasn't don't let nobody touch you. It wasn't that. And it was just, the seriousness, the exaggeration behind it. I didn't really receive that message of how serious they meant by it, and how serious they meant when it came to that. But 8-year-old me would have told my dad.
Okay.
I would have told.
That's good.
I definitely would have told. But I got older, and I had all this time to tell, and I didn't. So I was like, dang, I'm messed up. What I'm gonna do now? But then I was like, you know what? It's still happening. I'm gonna get my proof one day.
One day.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my proof one day.
You surely did. Yeah, because I just want to send this message. And again, I'm truly hoping that we can reach some children, or if you know some kids, I don't know. I just hope our podcast can be reached. They can go as far out as, I don't know, the country.
Yeah, we want for global.
Yeah,
for the globe.
Say something. We're telling that 8-year-old, we're telling that 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and I know it's hard to get that memo to a 5-year-old, but say something and try not to keep silent and thinking that that's okay. Because then you also have to think about, and I don't know if you can expound on this, the grooming part.
Yeah. It's a grooming process.
And so it's easier for a kid because of the vulnerability of a kid. They're easily groomed.
I'm gonna go take you to McDonald's, and on the way to McDonald's, they get in touch, or they get their Happy Meal and they eat their fries, and now somebody touching their leg,
right?
Or we just gonna go for a ride. Now you touching my leg while we riding.
Right.
It's the whole grooming behind it. Or you just randomly passed me $50. Why am I getting $50? Here, just take it. Now you can have it. And then after I take the $50, now you're touching on my leg and you're telling me to come here. No, that's the grooming part of it, and it's not. It's just the vulnerability that they see
in the place of the child. Yeah. So to me, then, my hope and my prayer is, if that child doesn't have the mindset, of course, to tell it in that moment. What I like about what you said in your testimony, in episode 1, you said you knew it was wrong.
Yeah. I knew that this person shouldn't have been touching me. But like I said, the process of, did this happen? Mind you, I got woken up out of my sleep.
Right.
I didn't necessarily say this, but the person that did it to me, he has brothers and they all look alike. I feared all of them for a moment because I didn't know which one it was.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
I feared all of them because I didn't know which one did it until the second time I saw who did it.
Right.
I was asleep the first time, so the second time when I saw who it was, I knew that that's the one I need to be kind of fearful of.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of made me, in a way, it did kind of bring me closer to my other his other brothers, because I felt like he wouldn't try that in front of me. Like I knew he did it. I was wrong when he was doing it, so I knew for a fact he's not gonna try that in front of them. I'm about to sit around them, and when I did sit around them, it never happened.
Right.
But once I was alone, it happened. Can't be around them forever,
Sure.
But once I was alone, then that was my most vulnerable state per se.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of say like I didn't want to be alone.
Right.
Because of what happened when I was alone. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you get the memo out to I mean, and I know some of the preventative measures you talked about. I don't know if it was like in a previous conversation, the episode that we had to remove, but you talked about that preparing your child, because you were prepared. You know, you were told what not to do, what shouldn't happen, and what shouldn't be done to you. But somehow
it still happens.
So it's like, how do you get a message to a kid, and especially if the environment that they're being brought up in is not too secure for them, but how do you get that message out to them and letting them know that don't be afraid to speak up, like overcoming that fear? Like, how do you get a kid to overcome the fear of speaking up on something that they had no control of, but they were groomed for?
I say after you prepare your kids for that type of thing, you tell them don't let nobody touch you, not even me. Your uncle shouldn't touch you right there. Your daddy shouldn't touch you. Once you get that type of message to them, I feel like the constant questions of, has somebody touched you here?
I knew you were gonna go there. Yes, I knew you were gonna go there. Follow up.
Yeah.
Follow up questions.
Anybody, I feel like, because I'm still growing from my situation, of course.
Right.
So I'm not a mama just yet, but the mother inside of me, it makes me don't want to bring my kids around nobody.
You won't. You probably won't.
It makes me, I don't want my kids around nobody.
Yeah, you probably won't.
But nobody but my mama. So I do say, just act to prepare them for the touching. Nobody should touch you. If they do, you tell them you don't like that. And then I will follow up and ask you, somebody touched you, right? Somebody tried to? Did they say anything to you?
Yep.
So I feel like that's probably the most you can do until you are told that somebody is.
And you know that, man, if that was something that was taught,
yeah,
I think the statistic of 9 kids being molested a child being molested every 9 minutes. Man, we can overthrow that number, because you don't know what questions to ask. Like, here's advice for parents. The observation is important.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, knowing and observation. Know your child. Know your child enough that if they are out of character,
it's something wrong.
You're gonna say something, and you're gonna ask questions, right? That was me. I know my daughter. I know my daughters. I know them. I know when they're happy. I know when they're sad. I know when it's something that's really, really bothering them that they literally have no control over. And so what I do, I start probing.
Yeah.
The only thing is with me is I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know I should have asked, did someone touch you?
Yeah.
And I would never forget this night. My oldest daughter, she was 7 years old, and her abuse happened when she was 6, and I noticed her attitude change. I noticed the attitude change. I noticed the demeanor, the withdrawal. You know, she was very distant. The different faces. You know, it's like she struggled with feeling comfortable in her own skin.
Yeah.
And I remember I still see her sitting at the edge of my bed. I was sitting up at the top of my bed, and she was sitting at the foot. And I wanted to give her space, right? I was creating space, a safe place where she can say whatever it is. Like, think about it. We're sitting in the bed. The bed is comfortable, like you said. I feel like I set the scene up very well, in my own opinion. I set the scene up very well. We were comfortably seated in the bed, and I wasn't all up in her. Like, I didn't sit on my lap, but I let her sit at the edge of the bed, and I sat at the top of the bed. I gave her space, and we were in a comfortable setting. And I created that environment for her to be able to say something. No, I did not ask the right questions. I did not specifically ask, did someone touch you?
Yeah.
Is it a problem? Nothing. I did not. And I guarantee you, had I asked, she probably would have. You know what?
She probably wouldn't have.
She wouldn't have cried. She wouldn't have said anything. She would have cried.
Yeah, that's how.
But let me tell you,
you would have got the.
That was my answer.
Push it,
and I would have started investigating.
Somebody did. You didn't respond how you should have, as in yes, no, mama. Nobody did. Yes, mama. You kind of shut down a little. So now I got my answer.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been a good sign. had I asked the right question. And
Yeah.
I'm not blaming myself. Like, one thing about me, I am out of that place. I don't blame myself anymore. I don't fault myself. But like we had the previous conversation, the reality with good parents, with some good parenting, and something like this happen, naturally, they're gonna blame themselves. But it's up to them to come to that realization: you did nothing wrong. It's not your fault. You didn't do it. You didn't encourage it, and you didn't put them in a lion's den.
Rather, you were able to, like, the person who did it, you had no thoughts that they would do it. So it's an unexpected thing. Unexpected. It's an unexpected thing for you as a parent and for her in that case, because this is in her case, it was her cousin. Yeah. So this is my cousin.
Right.
Like for me, it was an unexpected thing because it was my uncle. So it's not nobody's fault, but the person that's doing it.
Only the person that did it.
They have their own mind. They know that they shouldn't be doing this. You can go find you a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and y'all could go have sex if that's what you want to do so bad. But I just feel like a parent should not blame themselves. Whether you knew or not, they have their own mind.
We shouldn't blame ourselves, but we do. Yeah. And that's just the reality that no one can change but that person. Yeah. So like, I had to come to my own aha moment. I reached that moment, and it was a long time. Let me tell you, I blame myself for a long time. It's like over time, the more, the further you get away from the day, the experience and the knowing, you start evaluating. I feel like every season, from the parent and the victim perspective, you're evaluating your entire life. Yeah. You're evaluating that one day and the day after, the hour after, the minute after. And so I just think throughout the entire journey, you evaluate enough to where you come to the truth. And I've reached my truth. I do not blame myself for neither of my daughters. I hate that it happened. Yes, I wish I could have did something a little bit more strategic. And like I said, with my oldest daughter, if I had to ask that question, I would have got it out of her. But I would just, I remember the questions I was asking. I was like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" I created the space for her to specifically say. But I did, like, again, it wasn't direct. Like, did someone, has someone, or whatever. Yeah. It wasn't. It was like, "What's wrong? Are you okay? What is it? Just tell me." And she was 7. She was so tense. Her body, she just locked up.
She wanted to tell you.
She wanted to explode it, because she was like about ready to explode. But when she did it implode, it was just a staggered, frustrating cry. Yeah. And I called out so many names. Will you talk to? I said, if you don't want to talk to me, will you talk to this person? I think I named off 10 people. If you can't talk to me, talk to this person. Talk to that person. Talk to that person. And everybody, she said, it's like, I should have known something happened, because she would stop and think like, no. Then I said, that person, no. And it's like, oh man.
I personally feel at that moment she was in a battle of who can she trust.
Is that what that was?
I feel that
she could not trust me. Wow.
I wouldn't say she couldn't trust you.
But if I had created a space for her to say something, that's literally what she was saying. It was. I can't trust this information. Not to say that it put me in a category of a bad person, but maybe she couldn't trust my response.
Yeah. That's the thing. Maybe, I was about to say, thinking about 8-year-old me, I would say she might have had the feeling of what's gonna happen after
disappointment. Yes. Okay. That fear of what's gonna happen.
Is my mama gonna get in a fight with everybody, or it was.
Or is she gonna get in trouble?
Yeah, or is she gonna get in trouble? Yeah. It was that. It's probably that type of thing. I think about 8-year-old me. I might have had thoughts of, dang, I might get in trouble too, because I let you do it. Yeah. But whole time,
this is true. I get that.
Control of what was going on.
And not only that, like when you talk about I'm afraid I might get in trouble. Mm-hmm. And that piece I can associate that with, because what happened to me, I felt it, and maybe they liked the feeling. Yeah. Right? Not knowing that your body, it's a natural thing. Your body was created to feel that. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't make it right.
Yeah, and that's when people go into, why you didn't say nothing? Right. What you mean, why I didn't say nothing? Right. Are you trying to insinuate that I like that?
Right. Yeah. Oh man, the confusion and the twist in that.
Because we sometimes you don't know why you don't say nothing. Right. It's a whole process. Once again, I spent 8 years processing everything that happened to me. Yeah. As I got older, I knew it was wrong all along, but as I got older, this ain't okay.
Sure.
But I was still kind of stuck between, dang, I let 5, 6 years go past, and now they gonna think I liked it or I was complying with it.
You know what's interesting though? That's to hear you say that. I often wonder, and I'm hoping one day that my daughter will be on the podcast. But I do wonder, did she know it was wrong?
Yeah.
Because again, this podcast is really helping me out in so much through your story and your wisdom, through your experience. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I do wonder, does she know it was wrong because it took her so long to speak up? And so she eventually spoke up at, she was 23. It was in 2019, I believe. It was before COVID. It was 2019. I believe it was February to be exact of 2019. Because I think, I think even that moment when she said something, I think she kind of got tired of hearing me. Because I'm a free speaker. I'm going to say what's on my heart. And, and I'm going to say the obvious. I call a thing a thing. Yeah. I don't skate around stuff. I'm going to call a thing, right? And so, I would associate, I think I would say things about her their childhood and me as a parent when they were younger and how I guarded them and, the life she chose. I always wanted to understand it. And how does it make sense? And I guess when I talked about it, it was always great. I don't have answers. I was only able to talk about it, but I didn't have answers. And so we were up, like, I think this conversation started at midnight, 11 o'clock could be at night, this particular night. And I was talking about, bringing my own understanding to our life. And she said, okay, mama, something did happen. And I tell you, everything. I don't remember watching TV. I don't know. I know I was sitting in my bed. She was actually sitting in my prayer chair because my prayer chair is next to my bed. And she said, "Okay, mama, something did happen." And I was like,
"World stopped.
What? Right?
The world stopped.
Literally, it stopped rotating. Yeah, it did." And I was like, "Okay,
what you talk about now?"
Yeah, and she broke it down. And she shared with me what happened, and I'm like, "What?" Wow,
like
shocked.
What you mean that happened? What
shock
you mean?
Factor, like what?
Yeah.
Last thing I could have thought. Never knew. Didn't even have an unction that could have possibly happened to her. And I'm gonna go. My daughter is in the LGBTQ community. I'm a Christian. I'm a woman of God. And even as a woman of God, I don't conform to her lifestyle. I don't agree with the lifestyle. Because first of all, who has a child and doesn't have, you see this child and you don't automatically think of your future, that I'm gonna one day be a mother-in-law to a son or a daughter and have grandkids and da da da. And we know that in the LGBT community, that is possible. That is impossible unless you do all this artificial stuff, artificial insemination, or if that's even a thing today. Now they got the IVF or whatever you call that stuff. I don't know, but there's still ways, or you just lay down with somebody and have a baby, a random person, and then raise it with the same sex.
Yeah, or the sperm donors.
Sperm donors, yeah. So yes, I'm not gonna apologize for one day. I have 2 daughters. I'm not gonna apologize for one day wanting to have son-in-laws and grandchildren. I'm not gonna apologize for that. So I never discharged my daughter. But I never knew, and I always wanted to understand why this lifestyle, because we know that some of the lasting effects to being sexually abused is homosexuality.
Yeah, it does turn people the other way.
Let's be real. I'm gonna be real about this. A lot of people escaped it. To God be the glory. Some people can escape it, but it shows up in many other forms. Sexual, you're hyperly perverted or hyperly sexual. It could show up in excessiveness, other forms of idolatry. Either way, the act is mind altering. We're gonna be real. And so LGBTQ community can say whatever they want. I know that we know the truth. I'm sorry. That's the truth that I stand on. And so I always I always wanted to understand. I mean, I'm telling y'all, when my daughter, when I learned her of her who she was wanting to be, I was doing all kind of research. I knew the biblical research, but I wanted to understand the genetic, the science, and where's this come from? Mm-hmm. Somebody said, "Oh, something happened in the womb." What? If science is science, please explain. Nothing happened in the womb.
So, do you think that possibly her experience turned her the way she is today?
I'm gonna be honest. Yes, because it was with her first experience was with a girl.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So she was a little kid, little young, vulnerable little girl. Yeah. Didn't know what life is supposed to be, and she had this adult experience with a girl. Mm-hmm. So what did that do to the mind? I don't know. Scientifically, I can't speak on it, but spiritually, yes, I do believe it was a mind altering experience. Yeah. In many cases, it alters the mindset. When you talk about shaping, it can shape your life. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. You. It changes. And so like some people may, choose to be with the same person. Some people despise the gender that violated them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then they decide to go the other. So, I don't know. I can't fully speak on it. Never been violated. Mm-hmm. And I don't live that lifestyle.
It definitely can despise the gender that did it to you.
And one ruins it for the rest.
Yeah. It can definitely change. Like, sometimes we start off as kids going through this. It definitely can switch your future around. Mm-hmm. Had this not have happened.
I think about it all the time.
We would be somewhere different in our lives. We would have different thoughts in our minds. We would be
I agree.
A different person from who we are today.
And then think about when that experience happened when she was 6. She had to deal with the thoughts, the aftermath, the residue from that day and forward, mm-hmm. right? Because her abuser didn't live here in Milwaukee; they were visiting, right? And I don't know if it just took one experience. I don't know. Yeah. I really don't know. But at the end of the day, she had to process that experience all by herself, mm-hmm. and she did not confide in me until she was 23. Yeah, at that time, that thing had already developed, had been convinced. And my daughter is a beautiful young lady. I mean, again, she's in a very interesting stage of her life right now. I don't have to agree with her. I tell her all the time, I don't expect for her to preach the gospel.
Yeah.
And she shouldn't expect for me to have a coming out party for her, right? Mm-hmm. As long as we can come together, enjoy each other's company, understanding that we have different views of life and love each other. That's what's important to me.
Emotionally support each
other. We're going to be support. I mean, I can't support. She don't support my Christianity. Mm-hmm. I don't support her lifestyle. In other words, I always say nobody wins. Nobody wins in this matter. But I tell you, what does win is love.
The love.
That's what wins. And so God wins in this in our scenario.
He teaches us to love each other, actually,
despite our differences. Yep. And that's that coexistence, mm-hmm. that me and my daughter, we're experiencing it now. She lives in a different city, same state, but I still check in on her, right? She comes and visits and, for holidays when she can. Mm-hmm. But other than that, that her inability to speak up, she didn't develop that power to speak up until she was 23.
Yeah. That was her moment of power at that moment. She felt powerful to say it.
And same as your friend, as my second daughter. Yeah. Same thing. She spoke up at 19, right? And this happened to her. Did she say what age?
I think she said, if I'm not mistaken, probably 7, 8.
Around the same age as her sister.
We was all around the same age when it happened.
Okay.
Yeah. It was around 7, 8, probably 9. Mm-hmm. She wasn't 13 or nothing.
I know she was in elementary. That I do know. Mm-hmm. But it's just it's a difficult thing to experience directly or indirectly. As a parent, my heart goes out to parents. My advice to parents is to observe your children. First of all, know your children and observe your children. That when you see a change in their demeanor, you see them withdrawing from their usual settings that they've always been comfortable in, and then all of a sudden you see them withdrawn and pulling away in avoidance. That's a sign that something's wrong. Get in there and ask those important questions. I didn't have those questions then to ask. Arianna's empowering us with some darn good questions.
Yeah.
Be blunt. Don't be afraid to ask. And even if they don't answer right the first time, keep asking them
Yeah.
to make sure that, you know.
Be a reassurer for your kids.
Yeah.
Like, just reassure them. Like, I'm here for anything. You can talk to me. You can be who you are without no judgments to me, because parents are natural born protectors.
Yes,
They're
we are.
natural born
Yes,
comforters.
we are. Yes.
Sometimes we don't like the way that they comfort us or
Mm-mm.
the way that they protect us, but it's for our own good, or
Yeah.
at least they think it's for our own good, and they have reasons for believing that it's for our own good,
Yeah.
whether we understand them or not. So, yeah, just be a big reassurance for your kids, because a lot of kids need reassurance, believe it
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah. They
They
need it.
require lots of it, because yeah, my mama could say, I'm open to talk, but I need to see that I'm open to say whatever I feel like saying without any judgment, consequences, definitely be a good reassurer for your kids, because you never know. Anything could be, not even just this, anything could be going on.
Anything.
And a lot of parents, I'm saying a lot of parents, but most parents, they miss the big, they miss the conflict with their kids, and now they can't go back from it.
Right.
Because they weren't that safe haven or
Oh,
that comforter.
Yes.
Or the reassurer, they weren't that. So they miss a lot of things.
Yes.
So just be that, if you just be that good support system for your kids, if anything.
Thank you for saying that. And we're going to close out, and I'm going to close out with this, just kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Ari just said. With my experience with my first daughter, because I think that one was the hardest for me to process. By the time the second one I learned about her, my reaction wasn't as bad, and I had more control, self control. But I can say, when Arianna talked about that, being that assurance for your kids, I'm gonna be honest. I tell y'all, I think I did a really good job with preserving the relationship with my daughter.
Yeah, I think you did too.
I did it
because I was gonna say, a lot of parents, especially how she turned out in her life now.
Yes.
A lot of parents wouldn't want
reject
anything
them
to do with her.
Yep, they would. And in my era, kids who were, it wasn't LGBTQ, it was just gay. It was just homosexual or gay. A lot of kids, especially the church, they put their kids out.
Yeah.
They kick their kids out.
Don't even know them no more.
Yeah, like, I disown you. No, I did not. That's my offspring. I carried that in my womb. And so I, by the help of God, the grace of God, he did give me a sense of patience that I didn't understand. And that patience allowed me to preserve the relationship with my daughter, despite the choice, the lifestyle that she chose. And even today, and again, hopefully, I hope you guys get a chance to meet her on this channel, and y'all gonna see what I'm talking about, because she has made, I'm not proud of it. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not, but it's her life, at this point.
And she's not done living her life.
Yeah.
Don't forget, she's not done living her life.
At this point, I have no expectations for her life. It's her life. It's her decisions. I am still a hopeful mom. God is still God, but he's going to be God, whether if she dies that way, or if she turns, like Jackie Hill Perry. She's one of my inspirations. Jackie Hill Perry was a former stud, and I found Jackie Hill Perry, her poem called Stud. Check that out, y'all. Google her. Google Jackie Hill Perry and pull up her poem. It's called Stud. Powerful. My daughter was 13 when I came across that poem. She's 26 years old now. So 13 years ago? Is that 13 years ago? Something like that. Yeah.
Probably about 13.
It's 13 because she's 26.
Okay.
Yeah. 13 years ago. I came across that that poem, and I tell you, it gave me so much hope. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. It's gonna be a fight, because she's a grown woman and she's a poet. She's a minister of the gospel now. And so I do commend myself on how I preserved through love. It just through, even though I still had my own expectations, I still felt disappointment. I felt the embarrassment of her choice. I still did a good job with preserving our relationship, that we can have sit down and have good conversation. We are getting ready to start taking trips together. We're hopefully planning to go to Dubai next year, God's will. But then the biggest announcement I want to say, and I'll put this publicly on the platform because I got it on my vision board. 2014, God gave me, and not knowing I was going to learn all that I learned today with her life and things of that nature, but I heard a book, and you guys already know that I'm an author. I have a book that me and my daughter, both of my daughters are going to be collaborating in 2025. We're going to start this project, and it's titled The Parables and Chronicles Project, The Guardian, the Sibling, and the Prodigal One. Yes, I've always called my oldest daughter the Prodigal One. And we are going to share our story. And I'm an open book already. And so I'm a published author. And I am ushering my daughters into becoming a published author as well, creating a platform where they can share their story, talk about the difficulties, how they got to where they are and how they overcame. So yes, be looking out for that. I know this is like ways out. God's will. We will start the writing in 2025 because I'm currently still writing my second book. But this is my first book. I published this book last year in 2022, May 5th. This one is titled Discipline in the Wilderness, The Challenges and Triumphs of a New Season. This book kind of came out of my own experience of God calling me away from the church and into a wilderness, into a season that I knew nothing of. It was dark, lonely, and all the above. And so this book is going to it just kind of unfolds some of the signs, a lot of warnings, some things to be cautious of when God calls one into isolation. We don't put ourselves into isolation, but God places us in isolation. And there is a reason why. And I look at my today, like I was called in my wilderness in 2017. Here it is, 23. And today I am a published author, podcast host. I own a women's apparel boutique and so much more. My primary job, I'm a youth and family advocate. And God has just been truly blessing me. And my wilderness has brought true understanding. And I was compelled to write a book. I started writing in 2019 and I published it in 22. So go and support. Get this book. If you feel like you're in a season of transition and life is it just feels lonely and you just, all of a sudden everybody is just, being erased from around you, it's a possibility God is calling you into a wilderness. Get this book. The book will give you some strategies on how to maintain. Because one thing about a wilderness, just like Israel, it talks about in the Old Testament, Israel was only in the wilderness for 400 years is because they refused to submit to God. So the last thing you want to do is for your wilderness to last an extended time, because God's timing for Israel in the wilderness was only intended for 7 days. They was in there for 400 years. Generations died in the wilderness. I didn't want that for my life. And I talk a lot about, the Israel wilderness and looking at my wilderness and how parallel they are. And so get this book, go to my website. You can also purchase it on Amazon. You can purchase it on Barnes and Noble. But either way, support. Please support. Go purchase my book. And please be looking out for my second book titled Embracing the Power of Me. Hopefully that will be out by the end of the year or maybe probably the beginning of 2023. Either way, I'm busy. We still in the lab. We'll forever be in the lab.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
This lab ain't gonna do nothing but get bigger. We're gonna find a more spacious lab, if anything.
Exactly.
Like I said, we looking for global support.
Yes.
Not only global support, we're looking for global testimonies also.
Yes.
So
yeah.
We're trying to expand, and that's our goal. We're definitely going to be expanding. We're not stopping.
We're not going to stop. And so that takes me to the next call. If you or anyone if you're interested in sharing your story, you want to talk about how you overcame sexual abuse. It's an uncomfortable topic, but you got this burning on the inside that you want to talk about it, but you don't know where. We got a space for you. Please reach out to us. You can contact us at our email. You can find it. The link will be in the bio. You can also on the bottom of the screen. Reach out to us. Don't be afraid.
We are so open for DMs. I'm always on my social media platforms.
DM your girl, okay?
DM me. I'm going to get back. If you feel comfortable, we are our podcast isn't just for you to tell your story.
We are more than a podcast.
We are more than a podcast. We are a listening ear. We are
raising awareness for sexual abuse.
Yeah, we are raising awareness, and we are most importantly a listening ear. We want to we want you to feel comfortable.
Please feel comfortable with telling your story, because we know that it is a difficult conversation. And also, I'll say it again, if you or anyone you know is experiencing sexual abuse at the moment, rape, incest, please contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673, or go to their website, www.rain.org, and someone will speak to you and give you the support you actually need. Don't suffer in silence. Please stop suffering in silence. Speak up again to help yourself and somebody else. Before we go, y'all cannot forget, please don't forget to subscribe,
like,
share,
and hit that notification button so you can be updated with any further information, videos,
episodes,
anything that we have to offer. You will be updated just by hitting that notification button. So don't forget to click it.
Don't forget, next episode, June 15th, we got a guest that's going to be joining us to share her story. And it's going to be a good one, and we hope that you will be there. At some point, Ari, we're going to have to do like a premiere episode where we're going to be able to chat with our viewers live. So, I mean, it'll be a recording, but we're going to be, the comments will be live. Yeah, they'll be open and we can communicate. So either way, just be looking out. We just getting started. This is episode 2. Again, episode 3 is June 19th. Check us out, like, subscribe, hit the notification, please share. And meet us back here June 15th so we can continue to have this empowering conversation, or this needed conversation, so that we can empower those who may possibly be suffering in silence. Thank you so much. I am your host, Sherie M. Davis.
And I am your host, Arianna A. Hullum.
And we are signing out.
With the audacity once again.
See you later.